In the swirling miasma of geopolitical discourse where the insidious tendrils of disinformation insinuate themselves with pernicious intent, it becomes not just necessary but absolutely imperative to reassert a fundamental, incontrovertible truth. NATO is, was and remains a defensive alliance. This is not a matter of opinion subject to the whims of propagandists or the distortions of autocrats. It is a matter of unequivocal fact, enshrined in the very charter that gave birth to this alliance. Let us turn, then, to the North Atlantic Treaty itself, a document of such clarity and purpose that it leaves no room for the misrepresentation so beloved by the Kremlin's echo chambers. Article 5, the cornerstone of this alliance, states with unambiguous precision, "An armed attack against one or more NATO members is considered an attack against all." This is not the language of aggression, it is the pledge of mutual defense, a collective shield against the spectre of unprovoked assault. It is, in essence, the antithesis of imperialism. The Russian narrative, a narrative steeped in a brazen distortion of history and reality, paints NATO as the aggressor, a wolf in sheep's clothing. This is not just a simplistic view, it is an affront to the very principles of international law and sovereignty. NATO's expansion, decried by Moscow as provocation, has always been a matter of sovereign choice, a decision made by independent nations seeking security and solidarity in the face of potential threats. These are not vassal states, coerced or cajoled into submission, but free nations exercising their inalienable right to seek collective security. The irony, and it is a bitter irony indeed, is that while Russia vilifies NATO for imagined expansionism, it is Moscow itself that has repeatedly demonstrated a flagrant disregard for the sovereignty of its neighbors. The annexation of Crimea, the interventions in Georgia and Ukraine, the shadowy maneuvers in the Baltics. These are not the actions of a nation committed to the sanctity of national borders or the principles of international law. They are rather the maneuvers of an imperialistic power, one that seeks to reshape the world not through the power of its ideas, but through the brute force of its military. And what of the claim that NATO is a relic, an anachronism in the post-Cold War world? Let us be clear, the need for collective defense did not dissolve with the fall of the Berlin Wall. The principles that gave rise to NATO, the principles of mutual defense, democracy, and rule of law, are timeless, and they are as relevant today as they were in the shadow of World War II. The world has not outgrown the need for security. If anything, the complexities of the modern geopolitical landscape, with its cyber threats, its hybrid warfare, its state-sponsored terrorism, have made the need for a robust, defensive alliance more acute than ever. In the end, the Russian narrative is not just a challenge to NATO, it is a challenge to the very concept of a rules-based international order. It is a narrative that seeks to replace the rule of law with the law of force, to supplant the ideals of cooperation and mutual respect with the dark vision of spheres of influence and might makes right. To stand against this narrative, to reaffirm our commitment to the principles of NATO, is not just a matter of defending an alliance. It is a matter of defending the very ideals upon which a peaceful, just world order is built. Before we draw our conclusions, let us arm ourselves with the unassailable weapon of verifiable data, for in the realm of truth, facts are our most formidable allies. Consider NATO's military expenditures as a percentage of gross domestic product, GDP, a metric that reveals much about the intentions and priorities of an alliance. As per NATO's own reports, the collective military spending of its members has consistently remained a fraction of their GDPs, far from the levels one would associate with imperialist ambitions. Indeed, many member states have historically struggled to meet the recommended defense spending target of 2% of GDP, a target set not for conquest, but for ensuring adequate defensive capabilities. These stark contrasts in expenditure, purpose, and legitimacy between NATO's actions and those of Russia lay bare the hollowness of the Kremlin's narrative. They paint a picture not of an aggressive imperialist bloc, but of an alliance committed to the preservation of peace and security, in strict adherence to the principles of international law and mutual cooperation. So let us not be swayed by the siren song of disinformation, by the false narratives that seek to sow division and discord. Let us instead stand firm in our conviction, bolstered by the knowledge that NATO remains now and forever a bulwark against the tide of imperialism, a bastion of collective defense in a world all too rife with uncertainty and aggression.